Good afternoon. Welcome to the International Great Black Read Aloud Day 2025. And it's afternoon here in the East Coast of the United States, but it may be night where you are or early morning, depending on where you are in the world. But we want to say hello. Um, and welcome to day 4 of the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. My name is LD Robinson, and I am your reader for today. And so today is marriage day. And so we're going to get right into our selections. And we have two selections for today. One is 15 Things They Didn't Teach Us About Marriage, and that's by Esther Katenda Magezi. And she is from Uganda. And the other is Marriage Ain't for Punks, a no nonsense guide to building lasting relationships. And that is by Calvin Roberson, or you may say Roberson, but you know him from one of the marriage TV shows. Okay. And so, but we do want to before we get started with our readings, we want to invite you to follow us online at Black Read Aloud. And you can find us on all platforms at that. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe there. Follow us on Facebook. And we'll come back with a few things after we're done reading. And so today is day 4, and it is marriage. And our titles for today are on the screen, and I'll go ahead and show the covers now as well so that you can see those. This is our cover for 15 Things They Didn't Teach Us About Marriage, Lessons from 16 Years of Marriage. And the other one is Marriage Ain't for Punks. And so we're get back to that. All right. So our titles are up. And our first one, 15 Things They Didn't Teach Us About Marriage, comes from Professor Esther. I believe she's an accountant as well. And she's from Uganda. And Esther Katenda Magezi, I believe I said that correctly. If not, please forgive me. So we're going to read. And her writing style is very straightforward, very funny, very witty. And she starts out, saying, like, I was thinking about writing this book, and I'm thinking, like, what qualifies me to write this book? She's like, it's in my 16 years of marriage. And then she finally just writes it. She's like, nothing, absolutely nothing, nothing. But I'm going to share what I have to share. So we're going to go with the 8th thing that she says they didn't teach us about marriage. That number 8 thing is, as you grow, you both change. Get over this very quickly and adjust as you go along. Many times you will hear one spouse tell the other, you have changed. You are not the guy I married. I don't know you anymore. I have learned that as you grow, you change. Your views, perspectives, interests, desires, fears, and even your physical appearance. And the sooner you appreciate this fact, the better it is for the marriage. It is very important to know that you are going to grow and change along the way as you are married, and so is your spouse. Do not get stuck in demanding that your partner remains the same person he or she was when you married him or her. As you grow, your preferences change substantially, and you change as a person. You mature, and depending on your work and circumstances, change is inevitable. That means as you change, you're going to be exhibiting a different character to your spouse. As such, your spouse is expected to adjust to your life changes and vice versa. The challenge most of us as couples have is that we get stuck on the old person. We do not want to adjust and welcome the new Tom. Her husband's name is Tom. He is now a much older guy with more of life's responsibilities than the young Tom I married. He is no longer the freelance guy he once was. He has greater fears now than then. And the same is true for me. There are certain risks or even jobs that I cannot do, which I did when we were younger in marriage. I am now bigger in size, 3 children later, than the size of the young girl that Tom married. I have a lot more on my plate with work, the children, running the home, the maids, my employees, etc., that I am no longer only focusing on pleasing Tom. In fact, I can no longer simply be there to please Tom. I am struggling to keep myself sane. I am trying to stay afloat. The biggest challenge is to complain that your spouse is changing. This is not the person I married. Of course, it cannot be. The responsibilities are more and the pressures are higher. There is now more at stake than before. Your spouse is struggling to balance their changing life. And at this point, if the spouse had some brokenness in them that had never been dealt with, this is the point when it will all come out, when it will rear its ugly head through either drinking, depression, or extramarital affairs, among other things. So I have learned, give yourself grace to appreciate that you have changed and that your spouse is changing too, and adjust to those changes quickly and move on. Don't get stuck in the old. That is number 15. I'm sorry, number 8 from 15 Things They Didn't Teach Us About Marriage by Esther Katenda Magezi. And our next selection will come from Marriage Ain't for Punks. And that is by Calvin Roberson. And we're going to be reading from chapter 2, which is marital CPR. Ruben and Selena were counting the days when the last of their 4 children would finally move out of the house and they could enjoy empty nesting. Oddly, a number of couples dread the prospect of being all alone after the kids leave, but not these two. In fact, among their friends, they were truly a mystery. How does anyone married for 34 years still act as though they're newlyweds? Often Ruben and Selena would snuggle up together, his hand unconsciously massaging her neck or her fingers rubbing his earlobe. All those years they genuinely enjoyed each other's presence, and they had no problem talking about their love life. You would think they were taking some sort of hormone supplements to keep them energized, but anyone who witnessed their love could see it was authentic. This was how their marriage had evolved. It wasn't always this way. In fact, there was a time when they thought it was over. They'd been married only 6 years when they reached an emotional impasse. Their second child had just been born and they were experiencing serious financial troubles. Ruben lost his job and decided he wouldn't work for anyone anymore. Selena didn't understand and felt completely unsupported, mainly because her dad, whom she looked up to, had retired after 30 years in the automotive industry. It was a man's duty to get a job and stay in it, she felt. Ruben was convinced otherwise and knew he had to branch out on his own. Selena felt she was not being heard and started having intimate conversations with an old boyfriend. Although it never led to physical intimacy, it was enough to cause serious trouble in the marriage. Ruben actually confronted her paramour, which led to the end of that potential affair. After counseling, Ruben and Selena were able to reboot their marriage and gain a new perspective on their needs and desires. Though it took a while, the relationship they grew after their challenges was more satisfying than they ever could have imagined. They learned a lesson I refer to as marital CPR, which stands for commitment, passion, and respect. That is how they were able to breathe life into what could have been a lifeless existence together. They were able to find the key to their success by realizing the value of what they had built and by intentionally doing the work necessary to make their marriage work. Marital CPR is the building block of any healthy marriage. All 3 elements must exist not only for the marriage to grow, but for it to thrive. Commitment. The first principle is commitment. It's a term we use often in our careers, in sports, or in other areas of our lives where steadfastness is required. But commitment is also vital for any successful marriage. Here's how I define commitment: it is a state of being bound emotionally or intellectually to a course of action or to another person. In essence, commitment is a purely intellectual or emotional decision to stay in a situation come hell or high water. A commitment is a contract entered into by two mutually agreeing parties to uphold standards and abide by principles, and to make certain that each person receives the agreed upon satisfaction in that document or agreement. I have often heard people laud their commitment to different things in their lives, but one of my most memorable examples of unwavering commitment was from my youth. A number of my friends and I played football in a city league. I remember the adrenaline charged feeling of suiting up and running out on the field as a handful of spectators, parents mostly, cheered us on. Now, to be honest, we were only mediocre at best. As I recall, our coach didn't expect college scouts to be at any of our games. We never won any championships and didn't make any playoffs. In fact, we were not even the most committed people on the field. That proud distinction went to the cheerleaders, most of whom were the sisters and friends of the team. I distinctly remember one game where we were losing by a mile. That happened often, but it never deterred our cheerleaders. One repetitive cheer in their limited repertoire gave the perfect summation of commitment. Irrespective of the score, they would rhythmically clap to the chant. That's all right, that's okay, we're gonna beat them anyway. To be honest, it became annoying after a while. Everyone in the stadium was well aware we were losing. We didn't have a chance. But the cheerleaders droned on like the musicians playing on the sinking Titanic. That's all right, that's okay, we're gonna beat them anyway. This kind of dogged persistence in the face of failure is what commitment looks like. It doesn't consider the dire circumstances, but holds out hope until the very end. Ruben and Selena were able to make their marriage work because they simply did not accept failure as an option. They felt they could tackle any issue and dismantle it for the sake of staying together. This is not a common mindset for modern marriages. Commitment is sometimes seen as conditional, as in, I'm committed as long as, or I'm committed if. While these caveats are understandable, they do not illustrate what true commitment really is. It falls short of the mark. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. No one should have unswerving devotion to an abuser or to someone who will put your life, family, or emotional health in jeopardy. But when these dire circumstances don't exist, a couple should make the intentional decision to dedicate themselves to finding every opportunity to succeed. When a couple says that they are committed to the marriage, that declaration requires them to accept the principle that ending a marriage is seldom the solution to a problem. To end a marriage instead of resolving the problems will simply create baggage, which will only be transferred to some other future relationship. I have sat in front of many couples who declare that they can't make it beyond their issues. This is too much, they exclaim. However, most of us would never consider leaving our children as a solution to the problems they present. We choose to stay in our kids' lives and see them through their issues. The same tenacity should exist between the people who brought the children into the world. True commitment says you don't even introduce the option of divorce. I counsel couples never to bring up the option of separation or divorce. Barring abuse or cruelty, it is a coward's way out. It should never be an option on the table, and this is what my wife and I live by. I've held a few high corporate positions. I've experienced a feeling that accompanies the realization that it's time to move on to another job. When most people seriously consider leaving their job to take another one, their devotion and performance in their current job will suffer. It's a natural response. Why would you give all your dedication when you're thinking about leaving? The same is true in marriage. When you plant the seed of possibly leaving, it will grow with or without further nurturing. The possibility of not having to confront the struggles and conflicts of the current relationship acts like an aesthetic to numb you from giving your full effort. That's why it is so important never to consider leaving your marriage. Simply don't say it. This is at the root of the promise to commit. The idea that you won't allow the option of leaving to even enter your mind. When it comes to commitment in a relationship, You must decide at the onset that you are in it for life. If your destination is not determined, you are prone to make changes in a direction that appears to lead to a more interesting or pleasant places. Your destination is marriage till death do us part. That is the agreement. Anything short of that, barring the exceptions mentioned above, is not real commitment. I know this is tough for a lot of people. I've had many frustrated spouses ask me, how do I stay committed? The answer is by deciding to do so every day. Commitment is a constant decision, not a one time choice. Each day you build on the decision you made the day before. You must actually verbalize your decision to your spouse and to yourself. It's a constant reassurance that when your mate hears that you are in the relationship for the long haul, and each time you state your decision to stay, you are building your own resolve as well. After a while, these constant reminders will become a part of the fabric of your relationship. Eventually, commitment becomes a habitual and unconscious way of life. At this point, it won't matter if you feel committed. Too often, we depend on how we feel to indicate if we're committed to a certain thing. Feelings, however, are vacuous and fleeting. They can't be counted on and are subject to changing based on possibly what you had for breakfast that morning or whether you got enough sleep the night before. In our current society, we place a great deal of weight on how we feel about issues. Trust your feelings, listen to your heart. The heart wants what it wants. These are all philosophies we have woven into our understanding of relationships. We have convinced ourselves in many instances to depend on something as predictable, as unpredictable, as a mood. The heart is synonymous with affections, which again is all about preferences and feelings. We judge our partners based on whether their heart is in the relationship or whether they feel they are in love. I have seen full blown arguments develop because someone does or doesn't feel positive about something. This is unquestionably an ineffective way to tell whether your mate has staying power. In short, you don't have to feel committed to be committed. You decide to dedicate yourself and you do it regardless of your momentary emotions. Now, I'm not going to completely discount emotions. In fact, it is necessary in a relationship to consider the heart in regard to passion and excitement. They are vital in creating they are vital in creating the necessary I'm sorry. They are vital in creating the desire to touch and be intimate. Nevertheless, feelings are not what relationship foundations are made of. Instead, marriage must be founded on something that is unshakable, something that wades through the murky and turbulent tides of emotions and stands strong, never wavering. The foundation must be dependable. Commitment is that foundation. Let's talk about the nuts and bolts of commitment. There are two ways to indicate to your partner that you're in the relationship for the duration. Proactive displays. A proactive display of commitment is a preemptive manifestation of your desire and intention to be in the relationship for the duration. Think of it as an oath or promise put into action. It is more than just words, but actual things you do to nurture your relationship and create permanency. These are acts to show your mate that you are not leaving. They relay the message that you are establishing long lasting fixtures in your relationship. While these are not foolproof, they do go a long way to letting your mate know you are serious and that you are digging in and growing roots in the relationship. Ruben and Selena learned this after their marriage nearly ended. In order for them to assure each other that they were serious, they bought a home together. Nothing shows more seriousness about a relationship than entering a 30-year mortgage together. Other acts of commitment may include having joint bank accounts, having your spouse as your beneficiary on life insurance or other investment plans, creating holiday traditions together or planning for vacations each year, or even on the lighter side, having scheduled date nights weekly or monthly. Then there are the verbal statements of commitment. This is when you intentionally communicate to your partner that you'll never leave. Yeah, I said never. or that you're in the relationship till death do us part. Simply put, just letting your partner know that your actions and your vows are real. These are all proactive displays. Passive displays. Then there are passive displays of commitment. These are the things you avoid doing that may cause insecurity in your relationship. These are the acts of omission that assure your spouse of your pledge to be in the relationship. These passive acts are necessary because they allow your spouse to see that you are disciplining yourself. You are shunning bad behavior and those things that may tear at the framework of your marriage. Some of these may be avoiding questionable friends of the opposite sex. Making sure your spouse is acquainted with your relationships outside the marriage is essential. Whether these are work, church, or social friends, it's important that your spouse is made aware of who you spend time with. You report to your spouse not out of obligation, but rather out of respect. Another passive display is to never mention divorce, separation, or use other divisive language. Even if you are just being playful with each other, it's unwise to hint at leaving. I've heard many frustrated spouses say to each other things like, there are other fish in the sea, or I can have anyone I want, but I chose to be with you. But I choose to be with you. Whether or not these statements are true, they are better left unsaid. These are actually thinly veiled threats that plant seeds in your spouse's mind. And when a disagreement does occur, these seeds will sprout. So do not give your spouse a reason to doubt or question the stability of your marriage. We all know that there may be someone else out there who might want to take on your baggage, but honestly, who cares? Even the best relationships are vulnerable at some points. We all want to have stability in our lives and have relationships we can depend on. Building the foundation of our relationship by proactively and passively expressing commitment will provide that security we all need. Passion. This is the P in marital CPR. The second principle is passion. In its practical sense, passion is a drive or an urge. It's the emotional fuel that motivates us to react with fervor, either positively or negatively. It is a mandatory element of loving and successful marriages. Passion is what keeps your partner coming back for more. It is what puts that gleam in his eye when she walks through the door, or what makes her do a double take when he dresses in a suit. This hand holding, eye gazing, butt slapping, sometimes raw emotion is what puts the icing on the cake of the marriage. It may culminate in sex, but even if it does, the joy of passion is just as satisfying. I'm sorry. It may culminate in sex, but even if it does not, the joy of passion is just as satisfying. This drive and energy help to make marriage fun and interesting, but it also brings with it a great deal of vulnerability and openness. When you are passionate, you are revealing your desires and becoming emotionally naked. I've seen spouses refrain from passion because they don't want to expose their heart. Expressions of uninhibited desire can open a person and make them afraid of whether or not they will be accepted in such a defenseless position. However, in order to have an exciting marriage, you simply have to push through fears and initiate passion. You can't wait until you feel passion. Sometimes you have to do loving acts irrespective of how you feel, and the passionate emotions will often follow. Married couples often make the mistake of waiting until they feel amorous or loving to do loving acts. The key is to do the actions and the emotions will follow. The opposite doesn't work. When you wait for the feelings before you act, love is not an emotion, it's a commitment. Once you've committed to love, just know that it's there. You must realize that ultimately passion is under your control. You can initiate it by doing the things that inspire it. Let's take a look at the actions that precipitate positive passion. It's like three P's precipitate positive passion. First of all, positive passion lures your mate to you. When you perform positive actions, it softens you both and creates closeness. Such actions let your partner know that you are still in the marriage and send the unquestionable message that says, I still feel excited about you, or I think about you when we're away from each other. Acts like a passionate caress or holding hands can change an entire mood in a relationship. This shows that you still want to be close. My wife and I make it a habit to hold hands while we're walking. It's something I've had to push myself to do since I wasn't a big fan of public displays of affection early on. But every habit can be changed. And just because you are not accustomed to touching in public doesn't mean you can't train yourself to do it. Marriage is about both partners changing for the benefit of the whole. Intentionally saying kind and even sensual words is another way to express positive passion. Simply compliment your mate. Say something good about him or her. Tell them how much you appreciate the progress they're making in their lives and in the marriage. We can never fully appreciate the power of positive affirmation. To simply notice and acknowledge something endearing about your spouse can be seriously mood changing. Also, selfless acts of kindness require a great deal of vulnerability. I decided when we got married that I would always open the door for my wife. Now, trust me, she does not need me to open anything for her. She is a very capable and independent woman. However, because of the intent and the emotion behind the gesture, she will stand at the door and wait for me to open it. This shows she recognizes what I do, and my job is to oblige. It's a small thing that has big dividends. There can be many acts of kindness from both parties. The object here is to create a habit of kindness. Do things that show you still care, that tell each other that you are still in the relationship for keeps. On the contrary, negative passion repels. These are the things that are either done or omitted out of apathy or anger. They act as clear indicators that there is a problem in the marriage. For instance, when you want to punish your spouse by using the silent treatment, shutting down and refusing to speak to your mate is a definite passion killer. Sometimes silence is a stronger communicator than words. When you don't speak, it gives your partner the opportunity for their mind to run wild and imagine what you are feeling. A lot of the time, these ideations are incorrect. Passion and communication are intrinsically linked. One cannot exist without the other. In marriage, when communication is, so does passion. But when it thrives, passion finds its greatest opportunity to express itself. Intimacy at its height when personal interaction is strong. Intimacy is at its height when personal interaction is strong. When a couple has sexual issues, the first thing I ask is, how is your communication? Another act that can exterminate passion is a bad temper or disposition. When a person is volatile and unpredictable, it is nearly impossible to want to be close to them. It simply does not create an environment for intimacy. And the ironic thing is that when a person is reacting this way, the very thing they need is for someone to be close and to help them feel safe enough to be vulnerable. Anger is a smokescreen that hides an underlying insecurity or sensitivity. It keeps people at bay. In the same stead, it dissipates passion so there is no fertile ground in which it can grow. Another passion blocker is a selfish or addictive devotion to other things. I'm referring to people who are unusually dedicated to their careers and have little time for their spouse, or people who are constantly on social media when those times could be shared learning about each other. Any of these distractions sends the message that something else takes precedence over your mate. This is not to say that dedication to these things is wrong, but when they become all consuming to the point that they are your first consideration, that's an issue. I am a huge football fan. I am an unabashed Tennessee Titans fan, and I'm passionate about it. We were living in Nashville when the team first came to the city, and my oldest son and I have been die-hard fans ever since. I actually had a room painted in their colors. However, I will easily miss a game or turn off the TV if my wife needs me. She understands that I enjoy following the team and will even support me in my devotion. But she supports me because she knows that family is my top priority. My passion will never be divided, and that decision is completely under my control. Passion in a marriage can be created or destroyed. It is completely up to the individual as to whether desire exists. When the actions are done and the words are spoken to create passion, then it will exist. When negative acts are done, passion will die. It's that simple. R, respect. The third rung on the marital CPR ladder is respect. This is synonymous with esteem for something or a sense of worth or excellence about a certain thing. When you respect a certain thing, you venerate it and uphold it as special. When spouses respect each other, it is evident in the way they treat each other. You can see it in what they do and in what they refrain from doing. There is an esteem they hold for each other. They have an ease and are unafraid to show emotion and acceptance. Respect is the ability to value each other and honor the intrinsic worth each brings to the table. You show a high regard for your spouse's intellect and ability to make decisions. You praise the areas where they are compatible to you, and you honor and learn from the areas where they are different from you. Respect for people is a basic element for living in a normal and well ordered society. It is often viewed through the lens of our upbringing. There may be differences in understanding what respect actually means to your partner because it is subjective. But what one person feels might be respectful may not be what the other feels. A man might feel disrespected if his wife disagrees or debates with him, while the wife was brought up believing that debate and disagreement are healthy. This needs to be discussed thoroughly, and both parties need to discover and reveal what respect looks like to them. A large part of respecting your mate is taking responsibility for what you do wrong and not letting them take the blame. It is not enough to just say you respect a person. When it's truly there, respect cannot be hidden, even if it is not expressed. You must show it because of the overwhelming gratitude you have for this person being in your life. It's an involuntary expression, and as such, it produces a reciprocal expression of admiration. I have seen so much disrespect in couples I've coached that is heartbreaking. I found that in a number of instances, people don't realize they are being disrespectful because they have had no real role models of what respect looks like in a relationship. If you respect something, you value it. This means you actually place a price on it. There is an assessment you give that determines what you are willing to do or give in order to acquire it or keep it. If a person purchases a beautiful home, the first thing they do is insure it. You want to make sure it's indemnified against loss. Next, you make sure it's presentable and taken care of. You might fix what is broken. You might make sure that when visitors come over, they honor your home. They can't act like they own the place. They must respect what is yours. You may even want to show it off to your friends because you value it. I'm sure you get the point by now. The same is true in a relationship. When you value your spouse, you take care of them and make sure they are protected. You make sure others don't treat them disrespectfully, and you are happy to show them off to your friends. However, the difference here is that you don't own them. They are not your possession, but still your treasure. Here are some practical questions I have asked couples in regards to showing each other respect in marriage. Do you speak positively about each other in public? Do you refer to the other in public or private as raising another child? Is there a mutual admiration of each other's intelligence? Are you proactive? Are you protective, when someone else offends or threatens the other? These are basic things to consider in regard to respect. But respect cannot be demanded, it must be earned. You don't automatically get it because of your gender or your marital status. While I believe everyone should respect the institution of marriage, you don't automatically get respect just because you entered into the legal agreement. When a person feels valued or respected, it builds their esteem and opens them up to love freely. It makes them feel worthy of love and motivated to actively participate in the relationship. It is the fertile soil that creates the environment for love to grow. When love is present, respect is a natural outgrowth of it. Respect can exist on its own without love, but not the other way around. You may respect a public figure, educator, etc. You value their contribution and speak highly of them. Nevertheless, Nevertheless, that admiration falls way short of being in love with them. In other words, you may respect someone that you don't love, but it's almost impossible to love someone that you don't respect. This is because love requires an action. You must respond to love. There is an innate and involuntary thing that happens when you have grown in love with a person. You must do something about how you feel and what you've committed to. A great part of that love response is honoring that person. It is valuing who they are and what they contribute to your life. This is what respect looks like. To make it more powerful, here are some of the direct actions that grow out of love. Because I value and respect you, I will care about what you care about. Show you by my actions that I'm listening to you. Put serious thought into special occasions, birthdays, anniversaries, etc. Because I value and respect you, I will not 1. Talk to you like you are a child. 2. Do the thing I know you don't like. 3. Insult your intelligence. So I'm going to go back because I kind of read those other ones kind of together. And so I'm going to go back to make it more practical. Here are some of the direct actions that grow out of love. Because I value and respect you, I will, number 1, care about what you care about. Number 2, show you by my actions that I'm listening to you. Number 3, put serious thought into special occasions such as birthdays, anniversaries, etc. Because I value and respect you, I will not 1, talk to you like you are a child. 2, do the thing I know you don't like. Or 3, insult your intelligence. I'm sure you can add a few more items to the list, but these are examples of how married people act when they are actually in love and find worth in each other. Their actions correspond without having to be requested or prodded. It's natural. Some may not have been taught how to respect others, or simply might not have the tools to show how they value their spouse. For example, if a man was never taught to regard another person's opinion, there would be disrespect for any opinion except his own. Or if a woman grew up in a household where respect was not modeled by parents or siblings, she may not be respectful to anyone in her adult life. This is a fixable problem. The more you allow love to grow and communicate your needs and wants, the more you can learn how to respect another person. We all have the ability to change and learn what we've never been taught, but it takes willingness and vulnerability to do so. Bringing it home. Commitment, passion, and respect. They must coexist in a relationship in order for the marriage to thrive. CPR for marriages is like a triangle with each side representing one of these qualities. If one of them is missing, there is a greater chance for the entire structure to collapse. Without commitment, a couple might have a healthy desire for one another because they possess passion. They may want to be around each other and may have a very active sex life. A couple can simply enjoy each other and genuinely like being around each other. Passion can exist on its own. You find this when people are dating. They may mistake passion for love because it feels so good and can go a long way to mimicking real love. They might also esteem one another, meaning they honor who their partner is. They may respect their accomplishments and praise them publicly and privately. Respect can exist without any love upholding it. But then, but if there is no commitment, they may inadvertently or deliberately not care about staying in the marriage. The passion makes it fun and the respect makes them proud, but they don't feel the need to stay and fight for the relationship. They simply don't have staying power and may secretly cheat or just leave altogether. These are the couples who give themselves loopholes just in case something goes wrong. In a great deal of cases, they will remain faithful until a better opportunity comes along. This attitude comes from emotional immaturity. That person may not be committed in marriage or in other areas of his or her life. This may be the mate who has had multiple jobs and always has an excuse for quitting, or other personal relationships ended abruptly without reason, without passion. A couple may stay together and or esteem one another, but the attraction will wane and their marriage will become boring. Unfortunately, a lot of marriages fall into this category. Couples stay together and may actually value and respect one another, but the thrill is gone. They have lost that love and feeling. There is no excitement. They do not revel in each other's love. In these cases, a spouse is more likely to cheat or have an emotional affair in order to fulfill that missing element or become complacent and just go through the motions of being married. In each case, the marital union suffers. Without respect, a spouse will remain in the marriage because they are committed. They may even have a satisfying sex life because there is a modicum of passion that exists, but they will not value each other. They will not share in each other's goals and aspirations or esteem one another. As a result, the marriage will become an emotional prison where both parties feel trapped. A lack of respect may also result in forms of domestic abuse. This may be verbal or physical or both. When someone is not respected, they are treated carelessly and without sincere regard. That spouse is looked upon as an object more than a loving equal and is treated as such. When all three elements are present, commitment, passion, and respect, a relationship can thrive and provide the necessary foundation for success. Those elements become a stable foundation on which to build a lifelong legacy of love and comfort. And when any of them are absent, the possibility of a holistic, satisfying relationship is nearly impossible. For any relationship to thrive in a way that both parties feel appreciated and valued, there must be real, conscious effort. While it's easy to spew words of admiration, the tough, gritty job of making an intellectual decision to stay and work out any difficulty, come hell or high water, is what the marriage requires to progress. It takes the ability to deliberately convince yourself to see beyond imperfections and generate passion, even when you don't feel like it. And it also requires that your significant other recognizes the fact that they are valued, not only with words, but with deeds that indicate such. Sounds tough? Well, it is. Hence, the reason that marriage ain't for punks. So that was our selection. We had two selections today here on day 4 for Marriage Day, which is always a subject as a romance writer. I love the thought of romance and marriage and love, and so it's always interesting um, finding and researching books from which we can share. And so there are plenty of titles out there written by um, experts in the field, people who are Black as well, who understand the Black marriage experience, which can be different. It has its nuances, particularly in certain countries and parts of the world. And so there are many authors out there. So it's always an interesting experience to do the research to find books and to find something that we think will be helpful to you on that particular day. Because we read for educational purposes. One, um, to simply show you that there are Black authors around the world who write on every subject. Every subject. There's not a subject that goes untouched. Um, but also to let you know that to give you something that will give you something to think about. And so I hopefully today you've had something to think about on day 4 of marriage, which is 15 things they didn't tell us about marriage by Esther Katenda Magezi, and Marriage Ain't for Punks. A no nonsense guide to building lasting relationships by Calvin Roberson, who I believe is on I don't know if it's Marriage at First Sight, I believe. I have to go back and find it out, but he's one of the show's counselors, and so um, this is a wonderful topic, and obviously, marriage is a wonderful thing. It's been created to be wonderful, but it takes, as he says, some CPR to make it wonderful and keep it wonderful. So that's some commitment and some passion and respect. And as Dr. Esther says, that you got to realize that people change, and the sooner you realize they change, the better off you are in marriage. Okay. Well, we will see you tomorrow for day 5. We are cranking right along here. I tell you, I'm always amazed at how quickly the time goes for us while we are doing what we're doing. We're reading, and already we're on day 5, and we will be on day we're on day 4 already, but we'll be on day 5 tomorrow. And tomorrow, our you can find our reading list. It is pinned to the top of our page on Facebook. You can find our reading list. And tomorrow, our subject is it is adventure. And so we will see you tomorrow for Adventure Day. We want to remind you that we have we partner with Fresh Book Festival. I'm sorry, my train of thought there went a little off. We partner with the Fresh Book Festival, and so we want to invite you to join us at Fresh Book Festival 2025. And you can see the information on the screen. It will be held in Daytona Beach. The ninth annual Fresh Book Film Festival will take place at the Museum of Arts and Sciences in Daytona. If you've never been to the MOAS, this is a great opportunity to get over there and see a wonderful museum, a wonderful site. Also, is the 14th annual Fresh Book Festival, and that is will be held at the Julia T. and Charles W. Cherry Sr. Cultural Education and Cultural Center there in Daytona Beach. And the dates for the whole entire festival are February 20th through the 22nd. You can get your tickets online at freshbookfestival.net. You can also go ahead and subscribe to the site so that you get the information all about all things where literacy is a legacy. And so we will see you at Fresh Book Festival. We will likely be reading live from Fresh Book Festival for a couple days. So to seeing you there. Well, we want to let you know that if you enjoy the International Great Black Read Aloud Day, we'd like you to share a stream, and if you share it and tag us, TIGBRAD 2025, you will get entered into a contest to win one of 10 T-shirts, which will happen on March the 1st. We will do the drawing on March the 1st. So if you like it, share it, and then let us know you shared it, and we will enter your name into a contest to win a T-shirt, which we will ship to you. All right. Well, we will see you tomorrow for day 5. This is another wonderful day of reading aloud, where we give voice to words written by Black people all around the world. We deliberately look for books written by authors across the globe, and Black authors across the globe. So we do that on purpose because that's what we're here to do. Is we're simply here to give voice to words, and we do it for educational purposes, simply to let you know that there is so much wonderful literature written by Black people, and you should avail yourself of it and change your life. Words will change your life, literally, like a good pair of shoes. You know, they will change your life. I tell you, it's a guarantee. If you read and you get something and you get your kids to read, it will change your life because it opens doors to everything. It really does. Okay. Well, and if you can't read, if there's sight impairment, you can if you can hear, then there are audiobooks, and that's why we're giving voice to things because a lot of people don't like to read, but they don't mind listening to someone read to them. Um, and you've all heard the story of, how, reading became a passion of mine. And so we want to say have a good day. Keep buying books, keep reading books, putting information and learning things that you may not necessarily gravitate to, but they may be of interest to you at some point, but at least you'll know about it, right? All right, so we'll see you tomorrow here on the International Great Black Read Aloud Day 2025 edition. Bye bye.